Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras, A Changing America. I'm Jonny Coker. This week, we'll be taking a look at veterinary infrastructure in Las Cruces. Efforts are being made to establish the city's first 24/7 emergency vet clinic, an effort being spearheaded by the animal companions of Las Cruces. We'll hear more on that from Dr. Duncan, but first, our senior producer, David Vasquez III, brings us this story on the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley in this week's Community Connection. Take a look.
Right now we're currently at the play yard. We're doing play groups with the volunteers here. All the volunteers here are super great. Their enthusiasm for dogs is contagious, and yeah, I just love working with them, and they help the pups here so much. Every month we have like 5 to 6 new volunteers come, and I try to foster them, give them good try to help them with their onboarding process, make them feel comfortable going into the events and everything.
Yeah, I started about 8 years ago just with walking dogs and fixing things up here and there. But then I got older and I can't do too much stuff. I can't walk the dogs anymore, but I can stand around and do things that don't need too much walking. So I'm doing the cots here, which need to be replaced when the dogs chew up the vinyl beds. And so that's all I do now is just fix the cots. I do some maintenance around here, but not too much.
Well, when I started, I worked at Off-Site Adoptions on Saturday because I was still working as a teacher in El Paso. And then when I retired, I started coming up and walking dogs. And then this job opened up as a greeter, and that's what I've been. I started before COVID, and then I came back after COVID, and I've still been doing it. I love the dogs. I don't come out here very often anymore because I could take them all home, and we aren't big enough to take them all home. And so I just love the dogs. I love to see when someone finally adopts a dog and how excited they are. It's a fulfillment, absolutely. You just smile. Friday and Saturday afternoons are my afternoons. Nobody get in my way. I'm coming up here to be with the dogs.
So there's probably about what would you say, 10 dogs in each play yard. Yeah, all having a blast. They're doing great. The volunteers are doing great. Directing them, keeping them in line. But obviously the whole goal of that was to let the dogs be dogs and stuff. The volunteers are just the hall monitors. So yeah, the dogs are out there able to get their energy out. And then we went around the sniffari, which is more enrichment and stuff. They can go lift the different scents there, get new textures and scents in their brain. Yeah, helps build curiosity and confidence. So if you go to ascmv.org, there's a little drop-down menu. So it's I want to. There's I want to foster, I want to volunteer, I want to donate, I want to adopt, and then you can click on which one you want, and there's more details about all that stuff. We're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the weekdays and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the weekends.
And now joining me in studio to talk about veterinary infrastructure in southern New Mexico is Dr. Duncan, founder and chair of Animal Companions of Las Cruces. Dr. Duncan, thanks so much for being on the program today.
Sure, my pleasure. And you can just call me Dawn if you'd like.
Absolutely, I will do that, Dawn. So tell me about the inspiration behind the founding of Animal Companions of Las Cruces. Where did that inspiration come from?
Sure. We moved here in 2019. I'm originally from Texas, but I've been a professor up in Minnesota for 25 years. I wanted to come back to the Southwest. I've always wanted to live in New Mexico. So in 2018, we came to Las Cruces, and my husband fell in love just as much as I love it. And we said, yes, this will be our forever home. At that time, there was a large sign on Wyatt that said 24/7 emergency care. I thought, okay, we're covered. And we immediately established with our own vet. So 2021 rolls around, and my dog Fergus had cancer, and he had the tumor removed. And we brought him home. He was doing well, you know, kind of sleeps the first night, right? And on a Saturday morning, he kept wanting to go out in sort of the wee hours of the morning, and I would go out with him, and I thought he was just going to the bathroom. When it got light enough, I realized he was bleeding out. So I immediately called our vet, and I called every vet in town, and I got the same message that on the answering machine, take the dog to El Paso. So we loaded him into the car. We got him there at like 7 in the morning. We were there till 7 at night. I really thought we were going to lose him. Turned out he was allergic to the pain medication, very common Rimadyl pain medication, and was shedding his stomach lining. On the way home, I was outraged because the sign was a lie, and we are the second largest city in New Mexico. And I thought, well, I'm going to write an editorial. I was an English professor for all those decades. I can write. But I thought, I don't want to just be outraged. I want to provide a solution. And that led me to found Animal Companions of Las Cruces first as a civic organization. People came out of the woodwork when they read the editorial, and they kind of joined me, and we thought, how can we do this? And our original idea was to create a consortium of our veterinarians. I actually flew back to Fargo, North Dakota, and Moorhead, Minnesota are the same town, and I met with the vet who had set up Red River Valley Animal Hospital there. He had been our vet, and he set up the emergency hospital. He sat down and did the plan with me. Came back, did the research, discovered that according to the American Veterinary Medical Association, Doña County rates a 12 out of a possible score of 100. That's a failing grade. It means nearly inaccessible care, which means all of our veterinarians are overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. We have like 105,000 pets in 81,000 households, 1.3 per family averages. They can't get to them all now. So they couldn't possibly share hours in a consortium. And then we became a nonprofit and said, okay, what do you want? What do you need? How can we help? And of course, our ultimate goal was to actually establish and sustain a 24/7 emergency hospital. But in the meantime, we're helping all of them expand.
And so in terms of those blueprints of being able to bring up and maintain a 24/7 clinic, like what are the major barriers in getting that here to Las Cruces and to Doña County?
The major one is financial, and that financial barrier comes in two ways. One, when I've approached other organizations and even corporates saying, would you bring an emergency hospital here? And they feel like Las Cruces is too poor. It doesn't have the finances of northern New Mexico. They're not paying attention though, because the growth in Las Cruces is amazing. You know, look at the construction, the number of people retiring here. So our ability to finance things has increased amazingly over the last 15 years. And, but if we can't get them here, then we need to build it, or we need to buy a building, revamp it, we need to staff it, and that's going to take $2 to $5 million. I don't run in circles where I know those big pockets, so if somebody with big pockets is out there listening, we need that help. And we'd like to be able to provide 24/7 emergency care that has kind of a sliding scale so that people who can't drive to El Paso, people who can't afford even kind of normal veterinary care might get some help too.
And it sounds like a really expensive endeavor, but it sounds like you've also made quite a few strides in terms of pulling in support from the community and from local legislators. I know on my colleague Emily Guerra on her show Puentes, y'all talked about your relationship with Mayor Eric Enriquez,
yes.
And he even mentioned to me, State Senator Carrie Hamblin. Tell me about those relationships that you've developed and how that has been helpful in terms of pushing towards that goal of opening this 24/7 clinic.
Well, one thing about our pets is they aren't political, right? So we don't have to worry about politics. In fact, I absolutely stay out of the political arena because this work we're doing is too important, and it needs to be embracing all of our citizens, all of our political leaders for the sake of our pets. The mayor, we set up a 30-minute meeting that became close to an hour and a half. And he came up with the idea for our fundraiser this year. He said, Dawn, I think you can go beyond what you've done in the past. We did it in Hobbs, you can do it here. And that is the Paws, Claws, and Hooves fundraiser that it's just bloomed. So the city of Las Cruces bought a table, the Animal Services Center in Mesilla Valley, Senator Carrie Hamblin, Art Forms bought 3 tables. A lot of artists support us. Having that kind of support indicates that they know the seriousness of the effect of pets, their illnesses, their losses on human lives. There's a direct connection. There's a direct connection between abuse and crime and what people do to animals. There's a direct connection between our mental health and the animals in our lives. So they understand that not only do we need to provide that veterinary care, right? And they know we're working hard to do that, but they know that we also need to educate the public. And thank you, Jonny, because you're doing a part of that right now. And educating the public on how to care for their animals is a huge part of what we do as well. We are not a shelter. We are in the nonprofit business of health care for our animals.
And you know, you're not a veterinary doctor yourself. You were an English professor for a long time. You know, how's your background and previous experience within those realms helped you push for this, helped you administrate Animal Companions of Las Cruces? Sure.
Well, of course, first is a commitment to animals. When I worked with the Lakota in Minnesota, they said I must be of the dog clan. I think that's probably true. I've had a dog in my life since I was 10 years old for my birthday, and I have always been the caretaker. It was always my responsibility. So I've always cultivated a relationship with veterinarians, even from a young age, and I pay attention to the needs of animals. So there's that, right? I know how to care for animals. But also I know how to communicate. I can write, I can speak, I'm outgoing, I like people, I love animals. And so I'm able then to go to conferences. I go to university vet schools across this nation. I just got back from Texas A&M. I'm off to Florida soon. We'll have Colorado, Oregon. So I know how to navigate the university system, to talk with vet schools and get in there and talk to their students and recruit them. We just had a very successful externship, and we pay for travel, room, board, and she has now signed a contract and will be back in June to work with one of our clinics here full time. Bit by bit, we help them expand. And they don't have time to do that recruiting, but they get free labor from me and from my team.
I see. And so what's your pitch to these veterinary schools and those looking to begin their professional life? What's your pitch to them to say, come to Las Cruces, come to Doña Ana County? Like what does that pitch look like?
I'm really glad you asked that, because when I'm going to the veterinary schools, I am not selling a clinic, I'm selling Las Cruces.
Okay.
So I go and I give them the data on Las Cruces. I show them the photos. I mean, the mountain's right outside my back door, right? And I talk to them about what it means to have a life worth living, right? I tell them, you know, if somebody offers you a job in San Francisco, you can't afford to live. What is your quality of life going to be? Quality of life in Las Cruces is amazing, right? You can buy a house for way under the national average. I mean, we bought our house and we don't have a mortgage now because ours sold up north, and we could buy this one here, right? It's a small house, but it's great. Look at the view. Look at the outdoors life. I came here because it's a university town as well, right? So you have the university town, you have the arts, you have the festivals, you have outdoor living, and you have a cost of living that allows you to have a terrific quality of life. Don't just look at the paycheck. What are the taxes? What does it cost to have a home? Think of those things, and they get excited. And I also say, you know, we're offering, we have small vet, small animal, large animal, mixed animal, exotics, the shelter. You can have a place at any of those.
And being a an agriculture college and somewhat of an agriculture community, does that also factor into bringing these vets in, especially with, having horses and cattle and other animals that's not just animal companions necessarily, at least dogs and cats, I guess I would say.
Well, we also think of horses as companion animals. We don't really deal with, although our large vets do, so if they had a position with them, we don't really deal with cattle. But horses, yes. That's very attractive to them. Texas A&M and Iowa in particular, those two schools, they have a lot of students interested in large vet. And so yes, that is attractive. It is important to touch base with the schools that are around us, right? So Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Colorado State, Midwestern in Arizona. I know that sounds strange, but it's an extension of Midwestern in Chicago, but it's in Arizona, the vet school.
Interesting.
Right. But also, heading out to California, to Washington, to Oregon, these places as well. So sometimes students want to go somewhere that's familiar, so Southwesterners come here. Sometimes they want something new. I just had somebody from Wisconsin say to me yesterday, the green and the trees are beautiful, but wow, those mountains you have. Right. So.
Yeah. So what is, is there anything else that Las Cruces could do, or the state of New Mexico you feel could do, in terms of making southern New Mexico a more attractive place for these prospects to come in and to do the work and have more access to that type of care in this area?
Yes, absolutely. So our goals, besides supporting all of our veterinary services and recruiting veterinarians and educating the community, also includes advocating for new ways to make more accessible care. I really truly believe it makes every kind of sense for us, to the state, the legislators, to turn their attention to our community colleges and to set up vet tech certification programs. Doña Ana County should have a vet tech certification program. I would love to see that, and I would do everything I could to help with that. It would make sense. Veterinarians need those vet techs. There's a real shortage there as well, okay? The other thing that I would say is, okay, I work practically, what can we get done right here, but also long-term vision. There is no veterinary school in New Mexico. We have a pre-vet program right here at New Mexico State. I would love to see a veterinary school come here, grow here. Let us be actually not just the focal point for southern New Mexico, but why not stand up and say, here in Las Cruces, we provide care for animals, we educate students, we are where you want to be.
I see. And you spoke a little bit about a vet that you had up north in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
And that you sat down with him and made some blueprints of what needs to be done. Can you go a little bit more into that? Like, what does that infrastructure need to look like?
Right. Dr. Kevin Dill actually was a veterinarian in Albuquerque for 8 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, his wife's from New Mexico before he went back to his home. So what that looked like for what they did there was that he gathered together 15 veterinarians. They pooled their money, and actually we're doing a survey right now of veterinarians across southern New Mexico to say, okay, if you can't serve, what would it look like? Could you give $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 to create this and become an LLC, own it together? So they did that. But at first, they did rotations, which we can't do. They did rotations themselves. They bought a building, they got all the equipment, they were rotated, so everybody did like one night a month. And within 5 years, they'd paid off the loan for the building, they were making money, and they were able to build a brand new, beautiful emergency hospital and then fully staff it and not have to do rotations again. And when he set that out in front of me, I went, all right. But of course, the problem here was that we couldn't do the rotations. But could we maybe go that other way? Could we get the veterinarians across southern New Mexico, if they really want an emergency hospital here, to maybe buy into an LLC, which they would own, and not us, right? But we would support them and staff it. We are working with a veterinarian in Colorado now, and he has set up 4 hospitals, emergency hospitals like that. And he said he would be glad to come and talk with all of our vets and show them how it could be done, but only if there's a willingness.
And how much willingness is there in your talks with, vets around this area?
Well, all of the veterinarians want an emergency hospital here. And I do mean emergency, right? Urgent care. Not something that competes with them for their daily care of animals, but something that supports them, where they can send animals when they are overwhelmed and they can't get to them, or it's an emergency that they can't handle, or it's after hours. So we know that they want that. It's really, do we have the pockets? Do we have the ability to do this? And I haven't actually talked with them about this because we're right in the middle, so I'm sort of jumping the gun, but we're right in the middle of doing this survey. And it would depend on that. If it comes out that, no, we can't afford to buy into an LLC and set that up, then we have to keep proceeding forward to that $2 to $5 million goal and have us set it up. It has to be run by a veterinarian, of course, not by a nonprofit. So, but they are thankful for the things that we have done. We've brought in Vet Triage, which is an international consortium of veterinarians that do televet service. And we hand out these magnets. You've got one sitting over there. They hand out these magnets with the QR code and all over town. And, that's a $50 flat fee. And they can handle 60 to 80% of the calls that come in. And if they know, this is going to be hands-on, we can't do it, they don't charge you. They just say either go to animal hospital if they're out open, because they now have some weekend hours, right? 8 to 4, last intake 3, but only the one doctor, so call, or go to El Paso. So we've done that. We've done these educational videos that are on YouTube and on our website, 2 to 4 minutes. And they cover all kind of the major things that we need to worry about. So infectious diseases and vaccines, heartworm, snake bite, obesity, that's a big one. Cannabis, that's a big one here. So they cover major problems that we have, and we have 2 more that we're going to be making. So we have the goodwill of our vets because we're not asking them for something. We're asking, how can we help you? Right? What can we do to help you?
I see. And how well do you think that these organizations, these vets, as well as animal shelters and other all-encompassing services, how much collaboration is there within that community, and how much more do you feel can be done in terms of working towards these goals that will, in theory, benefit everyone?
Right. You'll get mixed responses on collaboration. When we brought the veterinarians together 2 years ago into city council chambers, with our former mayor sent a letter on my behalf, and we brought them in. They came in quite tense because they thought they were in competition with one another. And after I presented the data for about 10 minutes and then let them talk the rest of the time, by the time they left, they felt like a community. They're not in competition because they're all overwhelmed. There's more than enough business. So with the number of rescues and the shelter, sometimes the nonprofits think they're competing for the same dollars, and in some ways we are. But if we're all really caring about the animals, collaboration is good. And that is the position we work from. We support all of our rescues, we support our veterinarians. You will not hear me say something negative about any of those because they're all doing a lot of work. And I really believe that if we approach this together positively and collaboratively, we'll get much further than if people are feeling competitive, negative, burnt out. It's so easy to burn out in doing this work. It really is.
Certainly.
So.
And I like that sentiment. But Dawn, we're almost out of time.
Sure.
But how can interested individuals who want to help or want to volunteer help with Animal Companions of Las Cruces? How can they show support, or where can they find more information?
Sure. So our website is all one word, all little letters, animalcompanionsoflascruces.org. So Animal Companions, that's plural, of lascruces.org, all together. They can go there. They can hit the donate page, because we always need donations. They can hit the Get Involved page and fill out a volunteer form. let us know who they are, how they might like to help. We also have a very active Facebook page, and it's private, so you have to answer some questions before you get in. There are other things that they could do besides donations and volunteering for us. There are things we need to be able to operate. For the last 2.5 years, we've been operating out of my home, which is small, and my study is overwhelmed. We really need an office space where we can all work. And that would be our address rather than my home. We need boots on the ground to do things. I can't get to every vet school, so I'm now training team members to go out. We have, for the first time, 2 will be going out, 1 to Oregon, 1 to Midwestern and Arizona. We need you to pay attention. It's nice to love animals, right? But they've got to be cared for. One of the things we talk about is it's not just about getting an animal, and I do hope you get them from the shelter and the rescues. It's not just about getting one. You have to care for them for life. So we need money, we need volunteers, we need things like office, where we've rented a storage space now, so think about what you might be able to offer. I might not be able to think of it, but you might.
Certainly. Well, Dr. Dawn Duncan is the founder and chair of the Animal Companions of Las Cruces. We really appreciate you coming on the show today to talk with us.
Well, I very much appreciate you having me, and I love what you do, so thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. And that's all for today's episode. Remember, you can stay up to date on the latest local news at krwg.org. For everyone here at KRWG Public Media, I'm Jonny Coker, and we'll see you next time on Fronteras, A Changing America.